The Stanley Cup finals are finally set. It has been a long time coming, but we now know that the two teams that will be going against each other in the Stanley Cup finals will be the Colorado Avalanche and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, this may be a surprise to some people, but let it be known that for quite some time, especially after that first round, this has been my pick for a very long time. And if you actually go back and watch my videos, there's only about 2 or 3 series that I did do wrong. So, a little pat on my back here for doing a pretty good job at actually picking the people that make it far in there. But the point of the video isn't to talk about me bragging about how good I was at predicting things, but to talk about the Stanley Cup finals and some statistics for both teams and who I think will come out on top based on those said statistics and the play styles of each team. But if this is your first time on the channel, my name is John. This is the Sports Advocate. If you enjoy this content, why not give it a like? If you really enjoy this content or you come back on a daily basis, why not subscribe? Because like I said, I have daily content, NHL, NBA, and NFL. But nonetheless, let's not waste any more of your time. Let's get right into things. The Colorado Avalanche against the Tampa Bay Lightning. An incredible setup for a finals. A team that has been in this situation multiple times in the past few years versus a team that hasn't been in the finals since 2001. Can the Lightning three-peat? Will the Colorado Avalanche be able to shut down a team that hasn't lost since 2019 in the first round? Can the Avalanche finally break through when they've been struggling to make it past round 2 in the past few years? That's all about to be answered here soon. And those are the big storylines that pertain to this series. But let's start with the Lightning, a team that has been here multiple times. And like I said, have won the last 2 and have a chance, an opportunity to three-peat right now. Sorry, it felt like my gain was really loud. It definitely was. The Lightning. Let's talk about their Lightning's trek to this point. So, round 1, they go against the Toronto Maple Leafs, a very, very good team. And honestly, the Lightning were the underdogs for the most part in this series, even with the Toronto Maple Leafs having a curse of the first round. And this series goes to 7 games in which Tampa Bay Lightning come out on top against the number 3 offense and the number 20 defense in the Toronto Maple Leafs. Round 2, Tampa sweeps the Florida Panthers, who had the number 1 offense in the entire league, but the number 16 defense. And in the conference finals, we see the Lightning take on the New York Rangers and win it 4-2 in 6 games against the number 19 offense and the number 3 defense. Now, the reason that I'm bringing up the offense and defense of the other team is for a few points later on when I'm going to compare these two teams, because it is important to look at the teams they have beat so far in the playoffs. And yes, the regular season is important, and it's good to look at those stats, but the regular season and the playoffs are completely different. Some people step up, some people fall away, and that's why we got to look at both sides of the coin. So, speaking of both sides of the coin, let's start with the regular season. The Lightning's regular season stats. They were 7th in goals per game, a very, very high number of goals per game in this team, and they were also 6th in goals against average. Andrei Vasilevskiy was a huge key point to this team's success, and he has been for quite some time over the past few years here. And again, Vasilevskiy was 10th in save percentage. Now, not incredible, but top 10 is very, very good, especially in a league that has 32 teams now after the additions of the Vegas Golden Knights and the Seattle Kraken. Now, the Lightning were 2nd in penalty minutes, which is not great. That means that you're down a man very, very often, which makes it so that your man, Andrei Vasilevskiy, has to make multiple more saves than normal in tougher situations. But the team was also 2nd in penalty minutes against, which what that tells you is they're also up a man a good amount of times. And yes, in some situations, these two do cancel each other out. Penalty minutes will go against both teams at the same time, and it'll be 4-4, or things like that. So it does cancel each other out at some point, but this does tell you that the Lightning are very good at getting penalty minutes against them, like annoying their team enough or taunting them into causing penalty. But they themselves also sometimes struggle at causing penalties and hitting a back check or things that aren't allowed. So it's, like I said, it's very, very good to look at the regular season stats because they're very important. You played 82 games. That's a huge pool of information to gather from. But I think more importantly, the playoff stats tell a very important story, as you need to know how someone plays in under the bright lights. And the Lightning do very well. Obviously, they've won the past two, but even this year they did quite well. They were 7th in goals per game, which is identical to where they were in the regular season, but you also got to take into consideration their top teams. So 7th in goals per game is still a very, very good statistic, especially with some of these incredible offenses that are also in these playoffs. And they were 2nd in goals against average and 3rd in save percentage. Vasilevsky has stepped up big time for these guys when these playoffs have come around. Big, incredible saves on nets that look like they're wide open. Saves on crucial power play opportunities or breakaway shots. Also some simple saves. You have to make simple saves. For you to be able to be a top goalie, like Igor Shesterkin was saying Vasilevsky was, you not only have to make these incredible saves that save games or tough saves, you also have to have the ability to make a save on these simple shots. And that's what Vasilevsky has been able to do time in and time out. Now, the Lightning were also still 2nd in penalty minutes during this playoff stretch. So they're still causing a lot of penalties for themselves, which is not great because then you're down a man consistently. But they did move up in their 1st in penalty minutes against, which means they're causing more penalties against them from the other team, which is good news because that means you're up a man or you're equal when you're doing more penalties for yourself. Now that we've covered the Lightning a little bit, we've covered their regular season stats, their playoff stats, and just a little bit about the team, we need to cover the other side. The Colorado Avalanche, a team that hasn't won since 2001. A team that has struggled to make it past the second round these past couple years, but a team that is finally here. So let's talk about the Avalanche's trek to this point. In round 1, they sweep the Predators, not too many people's surprise with Jose Saros out of the net after an injury, but they sweep the Predators, who had the number 13 offense and the number 17 defense. They then go on to win 4-2 over the St. Louis Blues in round 2 in a very tough series, honestly. And the Blues had the number 3 offense and the number 11 defense. And then they go on against the conference finals winners on the other side of the bracket, the Oilers, and the Avalanche sweeps the Oilers, which I feel like was one of the smallest surprises in all of these playoffs. Yes, the Oilers did a great job to make it this far, but no one really expected the Oilers to steal a game or two from these Avalanche. I think I did say it would be in 5 or 6 games, I want to say, but that was just kind of soft thinking. I hate predicting sweeps because it always just feels so wrong to say, but Avalanche do it. They sweep the Oilers in the conference finals, but the Oilers did have the number 8 offense and the number 21 defense. And like I said, we'll come back to some of those numbers at the very end when we're comparing these two teams, but it is important to analyze those numbers as they do bring up some good points. Now, the Avalanche regular season stats, they had a very, very good regular season. They were the number 1 team in the entire league, if I do remember correctly, and by a very, very good margin. So the Avalanche's regular season stats, they were 2nd in goals per game, which again, they're scoring a lot of goals, and that's what it definitely is going to happen when you look at this roster and how it's built. It's a lot of guys that can score these goals. They were also 8th in goals against average, so they're limiting the number of goals on them, even though they're scoring a lot. So it's going to take even more pressure off. And quick note here, I'm in a new setup. So hopefully I'm looking at the right point because my computer's set up in a weird spot. So if you notice that I'm like staring off to the left or something, I apologize. I'm going to rewatch the video and figure out where I need to look. I think it's actually where I'm looking right now, but it feels a little weird because I used to be able to look at myself and I would be lined up with the camera when I was farther back, but right now I feel like I'm really over here. So I'm going to start looking at the camera more. Where was that? 2nd in goals against average, very good. And they were 3rd in save percentage. So not only is there, he's doing really, really good when their shots on net at saving them, but there's not as many goals that are going in when, you're in a bad situation where there's not help or anything. You're just limiting the number of goals that are going in, period. Now, another thing that is very... Wait. No, I just misread. Sorry, I misread completely. Scratch everything I just said. Second in goals per game, I said that right. 8th in goals against average and 6th in save percentage. So still very, very good numbers. Nothing like 3rd and 2nd, no, but still very good numbers at 8th in goals against average and 6th in save percentage. They were also 12th in penalty minutes for. This team is very, very good at preventing penalties for themselves and keeping it so that it's either even or they are up a man, rather than the other way around. As well as they're 5th in penalty minutes against. So they're doing a very good job at forcing penalties for the other team to help them be up a man, while also making sure they don't cause a bad situation for themselves and lose a chance at a penalty play with a 4-on-4 instead. So very, very good news. But again, we need to look at the playoff stats because it is important. So the Avalanche's playoff stats. For one, they are number 1 in goals per game. They have been scoring at an incredible rate. Now, you got to look at who they were going against, and their defense was not incredible. Predators 17th, without Jose Saros. Blues 11th. And the Oilers were 21st. So, maybe that has a little something to do with it, but you look at their second in goals against, or goals per game in the regular season, I think it definitely comes down to the team being good, not who they went against being bad. They were also 6th in goals against average and 7th in save percentage. So again, they were staying very, very consistent at their ability to prevent goals from going in. So they were doing a very good job of that. And again, they were 11th in penalty minutes for. They're really, really limiting the amount of time that they're down a man and or 4-4, while also being 6th in penalty minutes against, which is just even more going to further the ability to have the ability to be a man up. Now that we've covered stats, offensively, defensively, regular season, playoffs between both teams, I think it's time that we compare the two teams themselves. So first, I want to talk about how they line up against each other on the playoff side. We're gonna move completely to the playoff stats. I feel like it's a lot more important in this situation, but it is good to look at the regular season stats. So let's pull up the playoff stats between these two. Lightning, 7th in goals per game. And the Avalanche are 1st in goals per game. So the Avalanche definitely have quite a big leg up in the ability to score goals, but you also got to look at the goals against average for both teams because when you're facing a very good defense, your goals are going to come down. Lightning are 2nd in goals against average as well as 3rd in save percentage, while the Avalanche are 6th in goals against average and 7th in save percentage. So it's going to be more difficult for the Avalanche to score goals than normal, while the Lightning maybe have a little bit easier of a job in scoring goals. Now, for penalty minutes, I think this is a really, really important piece of information because it's going to tell you how many times you're on a power play or a penalty kill. And, it does make a huge difference when you're on one or the other a lot more than the other. It makes a tremendous difference in the amount of goals that are scored. So the Lightning are 2nd in penalty minutes, which means they have a lot of penalties for themselves, while the Avalanche are 11th in penalty minutes. So huge gap, which likely means that the Avalanche are going to have a lot more opportunities at the power play. But the Lightning are also 1st in drawing penalties, while the Avalanche are 6th. So the Avalanche might actually have more penalties for them than normal because of the Lightning's ability to draw penalties on them. So I think these guys actually line up pretty well. Although the Avalanche maybe have a better scoring ability, the Lightning have a better defensive ability. And they kind of cancel each other out. Not completely, but do a pretty good job at limiting the number on both sides of things. And the Lightning's ability to get penalties drawn on the other team is also going to help slim down that gap between the Avalanche ability to limit the number of penalties they have for themselves. So now I think it's also very important that we talk about these numbers I talked about on the teams they've went against before. So let's look at those real quick. So the Lightning obviously went against the Maple Leafs, the Panthers, and the Rangers, while the Avalanche went against the Predators, Blues, and the Oilers. So let's look at the offensive rankings for the Lightning's and the Avalanche's teams they've won against. The Lightning went against the number 3 offense, the number 1 offense, and the number 19 offense. So 2 top 3 offenses from the regular season they went against in the playoffs. Now for the Avalanche, they went against the number 13 offense. I messed up somewhere. I wrote 3 again for the Blues offense. I think they were 4th. So we're going to go with that. 13th offense, 4th offense, and the 8th offense. So they have 2 top 10 offenses that they went against. Now, the Lightning went against the number 20 defense, number 16 defense, and the number 3 defense. Avalanche went against the number 17 defense, number 11 defense, and the number 21 defense. So the Avalanche really haven't had a tremendous difficulty going against teams with top defenses. The closest they got to a top defense was the 11th ranked St. Louis Blues. And that series went to 6. Now the Blues did have a really, really good offense, but the Lightning also have a really good offense and a really good defense. So maybe a little bit of a worry. But when you look on the other side of the coin, the Lightning have went against really, really good offenses, which the Avalanche do have, but they've only went against one top 15 defense. And although that was number 3, they've only went against one top 15. The other 2 defenses were in the bottom half of the league or right at middle, like the Florida Panthers were at 16. So, neither of these teams has won against an incredible defense time in and time out. The Lightning do go against the Rangers and win in 6 games against a top defense, but they didn't have a top offense. Well, the St. Louis Blues had a number 3 offense or a number 4 offense and a number 11 defense. So you go against a team that can do a bit of both on both sides. The Avalanche never went against a top 10 defense. So who leans one way? Well, now I think it's time that we kind of look at previous playoffs. The Tampa Bay Lightning, again, have been here in 2 back-to-back years and won it. And now they're here again. Well, the Avalanche haven't been here for a long time. So the difference now is you have a team that has already won it and wants the three-peat, but maybe isn't as hungry as a team that hasn't been here for a long time and hasn't won it for an even longer time. I have a gnat in here. So what does it come down to? Who is more hungry? Well, I think another important thing to look at is the number of games played in the playoffs. The Lightning, they swept the Florida Panthers, but other than that, every single series was 6 or more. 7-game series first round, 4, and then 6. So you add those all up, and you end up with, 14 plus 3 more? You have 17 games played for the Lightning, while the Avalanche, again, have only had more than 4 games one time. And that was a 6-game series in round 2 against the Blues. Not only that, but they had a huge break after sweeping the Oilers. Now they've had quite a bit of rest before the finals actually do start. So now you have 14 games versus 17 games. And although 3 games isn't a big difference, I think the difference here comes when the breaks were. The Avalanche have had a break already and are about to enter an even longer break before the finals actually start, while the Lightning didn't get quite a big a break because they had to play 6 games. So let's get to my predictions. How important are 3 games? How important are a couple rest days? Well, as we all know, sometimes a longer rest is not always a good thing. In football, sometimes we see that teams that have a bye in round 1 of the playoffs end up losing in a terrible fashion in the first game that they play in the playoffs because they were rested and they weren't fully prepared. But the Avalanche already proved that they can win after a long stretch when they beat the Predators in sweep and then went on and beat the Blues. But it was a 6-game series. Now, the Lightning have been in tough situations, but they sweep the Panthers and then won in 6 games against the Rangers. So I don't think a break's going to be what it comes down to. What I think it comes down to is pedigree, player pedigree, coaching pedigree, and most importantly, the ability to have experience. And experience is the reason why I'm going to pick who I'm going to pick. And it's a team I haven't picked against in a long time because of their experience. And I'm going to pick the Lightning. And I'm going to pick them in. Most series here have been really close throughout these playoffs. So I'm going to pick Lightning in 6. I'm not going to say 7. I think the Avalanche definitely take 2, and it's going to be because of their offense, not because of their goalie, even though their goalie is incredible. I think it's Lightning in 6. And that's my prediction. So comment down below what your prediction is. And if you think I'm completely wrong, have a conversation with me. But as always, if you enjoyed this video, give me a like. If you really enjoy this video and you come back on a daily basis anyways, why not subscribe? Because not only do I appreciate it a lot, but if you're coming back on a daily basis anyways, you might as well. I have the Lightning in 6. And, I'm pretty confident in that choice. And if it's wrong, whatever, so be it. I'm not a fan of either of these teams. But this has been an incredible playoff series playoffs in general to watch. But as always, I hope it taught you something today. I hope it made you smile. I hope it made you laugh. That's something that's really important to me. Affect someone else's day in a great way, because every day can be a great day if we put in the effort. And as always, you guys all be safe out there.
But something deep inside